Man led the French Revolution at the same size as Kim Kardashian. Heart over height. Stupid. He
I have been caused physical pain. Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Napoleonic Wars channel, where today I'm looking like a bit of a hobo. To be honest, I definitely could do with a shave. But enough about my facial hair problems. As you may have seen in recent weeks, there have been a lot of hot takes on the internet about Napoleon's life. It's part of that thing that we're going to see a lot of now, where people are getting involved in discussing Napoleon and his life, and that's fantastic. But should you drop some of those takes like they are hot? See what I did there? I know, agonizing, wasn't it? What I'm going to do in a series of videos is break down some of these takes, extract the fact, appreciate the art form that's going into some of these, because some of them are working hard to kind of bring another generation into the discussion, and that's fantastic. And I don't want to sit here and turn around and go, that was rubbish, like some kind of troll. But at the same time, sometimes there are historical inaccuracies that just get perpetuated. And hey, it's for people like me who spend far too much of their time reading about the period to then step in and go, well, actually, I'm going to be very picky and spoil the fun. And apparently this makes it for good YouTube content. Anyway, enough about that. Today's installment is going to come courtesy of a YouTube channel titled Rude Boy Brody. This guy is basically kind of providing a slightly sort of gangster style commentary on Napoleon and certain aspects of his life. So let's have a little look and see what we can make of it. So this is Rude Boy Brody talking about Napoleon, and I believe it's entitled, What If I Told You Napoleon Was the Original Simp?
Napoleon was the original simp.
Told you. So consistent, if nothing else. So for those of you who aren't down with the homies, bruv, because obviously I'm so street, so I looked this up in case you hadn't realised. I'm very much not down with the kids and haven't been for about a decade. So a simp is a male who is overly submissive to a female and gains nothing from it. So overly submissive, in fact, that other guys cringe and feel ashamed when seeing them. Those are not my words. Those are the words of the Urban Dictionary, because I had to look this up, quite frankly. Okay, so you can see where he's going with this. There's going to be talk about Josephine. We'll get to that when he mentions it. I can see where he's going with this. There's a joke to be made here, right? So, you know, let's see how it plays out.
In his prime, he stood just 5'6". Man led the French Revolution at the same size as Kim Kardashian. Heart over height. Stupid. He
I have been caused physical pain. I don't know why this is still a thing. Napoleon didn't lead the French Revolution. It's one of those things that trips off people's tongues. Napoleon literally ends the damn French Revolution. It's literally the opposite of leading the French Revolution. Napoleon comes in with his coup in Brumaire, 18th of Brumaire, 1799, and literally, he says it even when he's doing it. He's literally ending the revolution, taking over, new system of government. The old methods are out the window. So he didn't lead the French Revolution, but points where points are due. Absolutely right. I mean, technically he's 5'6" and 5'6.5 inches. But what's a half inch between friends? No dirty jokes in the comments, please. So what that actually means is that he's just above the average male height for the time. So it's not really sort of heart over height stupid. And so the comment kind of falls apart. Sorry, but it just does. But, you know, at least he didn't go for the whole kind of, oh, he was 5'2", Napoleon was short trap. I mean, where that comes from is that the French inch back then was longer than the standard imperial measure. Again, no dirty jokes in the comments, please. This is a clean channel. Let's keep it that way, folks. So points for not just doing the basic Google search and going, oh, he was 5'2". But sadly, the joke sort of falls a bit flat. Sorry.
letters to his wife 3 times a day, concerned over whether she was remaining faithful while he was en route. Little did he know she began an affair within days of his departure. Napoleon.
Sure. But are we seriously pretending that Napoleon didn't have affairs? And I'm not blaming this guy, because what he's doing here is tapping into a line of commentary that is just so commonplace about Josephine. And basically, oh, Josephine slept around. Josephine had tons of lovers. Josephine didn't love Napoleon. She wasn't interested in him. All she was interested in doing was jumping into bed with some other guy. I've seen people describing Josephine as a whore. That perception can get in the bin. So I'm not blaming this guy specifically for the fact that that's how a lot of people think about Josephine. That's quite a common way of thinking about things. But Napoleon had his own string of mistresses. Admittedly, he was faithful for longer. So the thing you have to bear in mind with Josephine is that she never really wanted to marry Napoleon. She was pushed into it by Paul Barras, who was kind of Napoleon's mentor. But Barras had been Josephine's lover, then decided that he wanted another mistress, so ditched Josephine, told her, well, I'm not going to pay to support you anymore. So look, there's this guy, Napoleon. Why don't you marry him? And then he'll be able to kind of keep you, and that will solve that problem for me. So Josephine gets kind of a rough deal in that she gets shoved into Napoleon's arms. Napoleon was very needy as a lover, I think. I mean, his letters they're full on, like properly full on. I know a lot of people go on about, oh, the love letters, they're so romantic. Perhaps it's just me being a little bit kind of autistic about the whole thing, but I read those letters and I'm kind of like, eesh, I'm not sure I would want to be receiving those letters. They are massively over the top. So sure, there's a point to be made that Josephine wasn't interested, and sure, she carried on with other men within days of them getting married, because actually within days of them getting married, Napoleon leaves for northern Italy to fight the campaigns there. So they don't get kind of much of a honeymoon period. They don't really get much of a kind of time to get accustomed to married life. But Napoleon gives as good as he gets. He has multiple affairs. And the thing that we always talk about is, oh, Josephine was so much older than Napoleon. And yet Napoleon goes on to have affairs and dalliances with girls who were 18 years old. So there's a lot of double standards there. The point kind of stands, and this is where he's going with Napoleon was the original simp. So it sort of works, but we just need to be a little bit careful about going, Josephine, she slept around and we need to judge Josephine. They were both at it, and I'm not being funny. Everybody was at it during this period. You point to anybody almost alive during this period, and they probably were having an affair at some point in their life. It's what they did. But the joke kind of works, so let's keep going and see what else we've got.
Napoleon was down bad. He could operate on minimal sleep, napping from 12 to 2 a.m. and again from 5 to 7 a.m. You ain't gotta be a physical threat to function on permanent demon time.
Okay, yeah, this works, and I kind of, you've got to be a certain age, I think, to really kind of tap into these jokes and appreciate it. But I can appreciate the art form that's going on here. Yeah, he had a massively impressive work ethic. There's no denying it. He probably actually did himself an injury by operating on so little sleep, because if you don't get enough sleep, then actually you cause yourself cognitive problems further down the line. So actually, when he deteriorates later in life, there's an argument to be made that maybe the fact that he was so kind of harsh on himself and gave himself so little sleep is part of the cause of that. And had he done a little bit less and stretched his life out a little bit longer, he might have been more successful for longer. It's a theory. We can't prove it one way or the other. But the guy had the power to like dictate multiple letters at once, like pivot from secretary to secretary to secretary, and they're all writing down what he's saying. You know, he'll do 3 lines to one guy talking about a letter to his marshals giving orders for a particular front, and then he'll just in a snap of a finger turn to another secretary and he'll be writing to a political letter, a diplomatic exchange with, I don't know, one of the emperors of Europe, and then in another click of a fingers he turns to another secretary and he's writing to the mother of a guy who's been killed in training. You know, the guy's capacity was phenomenal. So yeah, this works. Points so far.
He was an avid user of tobacco by the pound. Don't let the skeletal frame fool you. Fucking 10. Sources say he could have been a...
So this is Snuff, right? He took Snuff. But they were all at it, so it's not particularly Napoleon-esque. And the way that Snuff works is that you take a pinch, you stick it on your hand, and then you inhale it through your nostril. So you're basically snorting it. You're snorting tobacco, though, not some other product, before somebody tries to get me a strike for talking about drug use. But this is what the aristocrats did during this period. Loads of people doing it. Napoleon, Wellington, Nelson, Marie Antoinette. It's a common thing, so it's not really that big a deal.
Legitimate hand model and never wore gloves while on horseback to show off his assets. That shit is the sorriest thirst trap I've ever seen.
So again, if you're not down with the homies like me, a thirst trap is, and I quote, a type of social media post that's designed to be sexually enticing. So you're going to see the point. Okay, so he's got nice hands. Whoop-de-doo. Is that a thirst trap? And if it was, then it would have been a pretty sorry thirst trap. No denying that. Sure, the propaganda paintings, it's something I've never really considered before. The propaganda paintings do show him having quite elegant hands. But the bigger point is probably that he's probably within those paintings going more along the strong leader line. So if you look at the coronation painting or Napoleon crossing the Alps, it's kind of big on, I'm the man of power. So the crossing of the Alps is the very famous one where he's on one of his horses, Marengo. There's a lot of debate about whether or not Marengo ever actually existed, but we'll get past that. He's on this horse, and the horse is rowing backwards, and he's pointing forwards, and it's an ultra masculine, I'm a heroic leader, follow me kind of image. I don't think he's kind of going down the line of, ooh, look how sexy my hands are. But I do take the point that the guy's making here.
He disguised himself as a homeless man and wandered the streets of Paris in order to find out what the people really thought of him, who knew the original undercover boss was the ultimate short king.
Yeah, so I've heard these stories as well. The question is, did he really need to? Napoleon had the most amazing secret police network, mass censorship going on during this period. This guy knew how to tap into what public opinion was saying. And work that. This is the guy who, under his rule, had the number of newspapers restricted in Paris so that they went down from 80 to 4. Just 4 newspapers were allowed to print. Plays even had to be censored to make sure that they weren't critical of Napoleon. Now, that secret police is actually run by a guy called Fouché, but it became the model of how to keep tabs on people after the Napoleonic Wars. Other nations turn around and copy the playbook. So Napoleon literally writes the book on how to keep tabs on the population. Whether he needed to wander the streets or whether or not it's one of those stories that's just kind of got passed down to us, I have heard it before. So I'm not going to turn around and go, it's wrong. But there's an interesting kind of bigger point here about how Napoleon kept tabs on people. Napoleon was good at kind of keeping people on side, listening to the murmurs on the streets and kind of monitoring it all. So what would I give this overall? I can see what Rude Boy Brody's trying to do here, and I can get on board with the whole idea of let's bring this to another generation. Let's talk to them in their language rather than sort of being overly historian-y and academic and talking in words of 300 syllables because it makes the historian feel good. That always annoys the heck out of me. So there are some things in here which sure aren't entirely on point, but I think if you weren't a historian, you maybe wouldn't know. So I get the sense that there's a lot of stuff here that you'd pick up in articles on the internet, and that's fine. This hasn't been it isn't a hack job that he's done here in terms of the ultimate basic Google search, top 5 facts on Napoleon. There's somebody's gone and they've picked out some bits of information, and he's trying to make the history relevant, which I really like. And it's kind of funny. I can see where the jokes are coming from. So overall, I'm probably going to give this like a 6.5 out of 10. I'm liking what he's trying to do here, and it's just that classic thing of just be careful with what you see on the internet, because sometimes you just get handed stinkers. That's going to be it for this episode. If you enjoyed this breakdown, let me know in the comments what facts have you heard about Napoleon that you think are rubbish and want verifying. Is there anything that I've missed? Let me know. Be sure to hit that like button and remember to subscribe if you want to find your way back. I'm Zack White. This has been the Napoleonic Wars TV channel. Take care of yourselves, my friends. Stay well, stay safe, and thank you for watching.